Welcome everyone to another automotive hot take. I just couldn't stay away after the reception and turnout of my last video. A deep and heartfelt thanks from me to all of you who have been on my channel for a long time or who are just discovering it. Today, we're talking about the 2025 Shelby GT350, a car that I particularly dislike. I might lose some people with this next sentence, but I actually love Mustangs. I didn't pay a lot of attention to them as a kid, but when the S550 came out, and especially the Shelby GT350, my opinions changed. The 5.0 Coyote in the Mustang GT was a cool engine, but the flat-plane 5.2-liter Voodoo in the S550 GT350, one of the coolest V8 engines ever built, if you ask me. This clip from Ford might give you an idea why. The Voodoo was an exotic engine built to deliver consistent, punchy performance across a rev range that most American V8s could only dream about. But it was just one part of a symphony of performance. Gone was the somewhat delicate MT82 manual transmission from the GT, replaced by a precision-honed Tremec unit that could handle the aggressive shifts needed for quick lap times. The suspension was overhauled with an adaptive Magnaride system and new anti-roll bars. The chassis was 20% stiffer, and heavy bits like glass windows and the metal hood were removed or replaced with lighter equivalents. The S550 Generation GT350 wasn't a numbers car, it was a driver's car. Reviewers and owners alike have nothing but praise for its excellent feel, performance, and drivability. That's not to say that the numbers were anything bad. The Voodoo engine output 526 horsepower, and the car was able to pull an impressive 0.98 Gs on a skid pad, with the GT350R reaching 1.1 Gs. Those are excellent numbers for a well-balanced, fun track car. And importantly, its starting price was $47,795, which in today's money is about $63,009. 2 months ago, I was browsing my feed when I saw it. A brand new S650 generation Shelby GT350 had been announced. I felt a little flutter of excitement in my stomach. Would this car be even better than the last? However, it didn't take long for my heart to drop in disappointment. See, the last GT350 was designed by in-house Ford engineers, who licensed the Shelby name from Shelby American, the company that owns the rights to it. That means that they had the production capability and engineering leeway to really explore the limits of the S550 Mustang platform and build an absolutely wicked GT350. This new GT350 is built by Shelby American itself. Why is that a problem, you ask? Wouldn't a GT350 built by the company that it's named after be better? Well, not exactly. But rather than just yap at you all about the new GT350, why don't I just show you what Shelby American has going on here? Let's build ourselves a 2025 Shelby GT350. Alright, now that it's finished loading, which took forever, we get 3 preview images with a cool desert canyon background, so that's nice, I guess. And we have a couple of options. So they build this as a modification pack to the base Mustang GT. So, base Mustang GT is a pretty good car. It has the 5.0 Coyote Gen 4, which is a solid engine. It has the MT82 transmission that we talked about earlier. Hopefully Shelby does something about that. You have the option of getting the base model GT with no luxury options, and they would turn that into a GT350 for you. However, they will not give you your car seats. That you will not be able to get Magnaride damping system. You will not get the Bang & Olufsen sound system. Paint colors, I think there are colors here. I can't see them. That seems like an oversight on this part of a company that's selling a car for, how much is this car? Oh, it's $109,995 with no options other than just being a GT350. So you get a base Mustang interior for $109,000. Wow, okay, that's a lot more than the last car. This interface here really screams $100,000 car. You can choose between the manual and the automatic transmission, and get the carbon fiber rear pedestal wing. So you can pay $3,000 for that wing, which it looks functional, so that's good. It probably helps grip on the track. Let's see, what do you actually get? So you get 800 plus horsepower. That is 300 more, give or take, than the last GT350. 800 horsepower is a lot of horsepower. That's as much horsepower as the new Mustang GTD, which is basically a street legal race car. However, this car does not have nearly as much chassis work as a GTD. It doesn't cost as much as a GTD either. I know that's not a direct comparison. It's just 800 horsepower is a lot. Like, you have to be quite talented and a quite dialed in car to make the most of 800 horsepower on a track. So, with the GT350 being a track targeted car, that seems like a weird decision to me. Shelby by Borla catback exhaust and tips. So you pay for the active exhaust, and then you have to buy another exhaust. That's fine, I guess. The active exhaust just includes like the servos and stuff to open valves. Front and rear lowering springs, so they don't actually replace the dampers. So if you don't pay for the Magna-Ride by getting a GT Premium, which how much more does that make the car? That makes the car $118,000. So if you don't get the GT Premium, you won't have sport seats, you won't have your cars, which is another $2,000, and you won't have Magna-Ride dampers, which is another $2,000. So now we're at $121,000 for pretty much an equivalent chassis plus 300 extra horsepower that I don't know if you really need. Short throw shifter. So they just changed the shifter. They don't actually change the transmission. That is incredibly alarming to me, actually, because the MT82 transmission in the base model Mustang GTs and the GT Premiums is a transmission that is like, even Ford gets rid of it when they do their Dark Horse upgrade. This is the Dark Horse, which is Ford's current like in-house special Mustang, and the Dark Horse doesn't even have the MT82. They switch it out for a Tremec unit like the GT350 had. So the fact that Shelby doesn't do that when they are giving it 300 extra horsepower is kind of alarming, because MT82s have a tendency of braking when driven hard, and I would hope that you drive this car hard. I hope. All right, Shelby badging. I think that right there. I think that is how they're justifying the pricing on these. They cover the seats with new leather recovers. That's nice. Shelby shifter bowl, floor mats, dorsal plates, like the aesthetic stuff. They give you puddle lamps, but only if they're already equipped on the car, so they're not willing to give you puddle lamps that say Shelby unless you already have the Mustang one. So it just seems like I see the effort, but is it a $54,800 worth of effort? Is it a second car? Like, that's the same price as the car of the bougie GT Premium fastback with all the options. Like, I could have two of those for the price of one of these. And I understand, like, the Shelby badging does, like, add some value to the car because people like collector's editions and rare cars. It's just, the last GT350 was so much about performance, and this one seems so much more about the name. I'd also like to point out that the 2022 Shelby GT500, which was also built by Ford like the previous gen GT350, $73,465 and had 760 horsepower with an engine and transmission that were purpose-built for it. Kind of based on the same block, but still, like, internals were redone by Ford, rebuilt and enhanced, and the transmission was a special dual clutch automatic from Tremec, like supercar type stuff. The previous gen GT500 was really fast, and not just in a straight line, like around a track too. They had actual track cred. And this seems like a lot more money for not a corresponding amount of more car, especially if they don't have any upgrades to the transmission. Like, the basic 10R80 automatic transmission in GT Mustangs is pretty good, but the MT82 is not a great transmission, and I'm amazed that they leave the MT82 in with these GT350s. That's like the biggest thing. Okay, so here's the press release. I've read it already, so we'll just skip to the parts that have really been interesting to me. The Shelby GT350 and the Shelby GT350R are back for 2025, said Gary Patterson, president of Shelby American. Just as Carroll Shelby envisioned in 1965, this sports car is designed to be exhilarating and competitive on both the street and track. The GT350 and GT350R each have unique personalities that are very different from our halo car, the Shelby Super Snake. The GT350 models are pure sports car, while the Shelby Super Snake is the highest performance supercar in our lineup. So we'll look at the Super Snake here in a bit. It says we increased horsepower by almost 70%. That's true. Tuned the suspension. Yeah, lowering springs and roll bars. Yeah, okay. Opened up the exhaust. Borla did, but okay. Smoothed the aerodynamics and gave it more sex appeal. I mean, yes, this is a good-looking car. it looks nice. Does it look better than a Dark Horse? Not necessarily. Like, I feel like this is not... I mean, the Dark Horse is about 60, 65 grand, which is expensive for a Mustang, for sure. This is a lot, too, and I can take a Dark Horse, which has the Tremec, and all these upgraded suspension bits, and it's a Dark Horse, so that has a premium thing, and Ford sells a $10,000 or $11,000 Whipple supercharger kit, which is the same kind of supercharger that Shelby uses. They also use a Whipple, and that Ford supercharger kit is for the Coyote that is in the Dark Horse, and I can put that on my Dark Horse, and I feel like then I have spent $80,000 and I have a car that is just as capable and has a Tremec instead of an MT82. Well, Shelby is charging me an extra 30 grand for the Shelby badges, which I guess if you're a collector, cool, but it's just, again, it's just because it's such a disappointment over the previous car, which was a driver's car and was about the experience, and it feels like this one's just meant to be a collector's car, even though they're trying to talk about it as if it's not. I don't see the GT350 as a pure sports car. It's a much faster car for sure than a standard GT, but I would almost bet money that unless you had a crazy good driver in both cars, like the average driver is going to be just as fast in this GT350 with 800 horsepower as they are in a 500 horsepower Dark Horse around like a short course racetrack without a lot of straightaways. Just because I feel like the 800 horsepower in this car is just going to be an absolute beast, and it's going to take an absolute monster of a driver to get the most out of it with the amount of like suspension and chassis tuning work. But let's look at the Super Snake. Wow. Okay, this is a $170,000 Mustang, so we're not quite in Mustang GTD territory, but we are getting there. And that car has a purpose-built chassis, and other than being called a Mustang and looking generally like a Mustang, has very little in common with the base GTs. Finally, here we go. We get the same 3 pictures as the GT350, except now it's in a dark shop instead of the Canyon. That's great. And once again, I can't actually see what colors I'm selecting. I just have to click in space. So this is a really $170,000 car creator right here. I'm so impressed. The Super Snake package costs $104,000. That is a lot of money. Do they upgrade the transmission on this one? Nope. Just once again, short throw shifter. So this car is $170,000 and it still has the MT82 transmission that people who buy base GTs complain about. That is insane. Looking at the rest of the stuff, since they've advertised this as a supercar, extreme cooling system, radiator and heat exchanger. Okay, that doesn't really tell me much, but maybe does it have an oil cooler? Maybe that's what they mean by heat exchanger. Another Borla exhaust system with the Shelby brand. Performance half shafts, that's good. Better axles are good. However, given that this makes like the same horsepower as the GT350, why doesn't the GT350 have that? Maybe this one's targeted more at drag racing, but that looks like a track car build, so I don't know why. It's kind of weird. One-piece drive shaft, that's also good. Short burst shifter, that's nice. Hardened extended wheel studs, I assume that's for this like wide body kit that they've got on it. So the wheels fit nicely. It's good that they make sure it's hardened steel, and looks like they've put effort into that. Shelby suspension system, so it's not specified what exactly they're upgrading on the suspension this time. Hopefully it's pretty good. And Shelby brake rotor upgrade. Vehicle retains factory brake calipers. Okay, I think the performance pack calipers are pretty good by default, so I think those are pretty decent brakes. If you're spending like the price of your base car plus like 167% of the cost of your base model, it's just amazing to me that they don't do more. I feel like they should do more. Aluminum hood again, like, come on. It should be a carbon fiber hood for this car. Hood pin locks. The hood extractor. Okay, so the vents are carbon fiber. The wide body fenders are carbon fiber. I mean, that's nice, but again, like, is it that nice? I don't know. I don't think it is. Let's see what they're cooking with the new GT350R. Let's compare that with the Super Snake. Alright, so here's the comparison of the GT350R, which is like the ultra version of the GT350, with the Shelby Super Snake. Blah, 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 blah. Let's see what the features are. So both of them have the same the 830 horsepower supercharger, the cooling system, the Borla exhaust, the GT350 RX is on the side, I guess. That's cool. Half shafts, short throw shifter, performance wheel studs. It's looking like a lot of the same things. The GT350R gets fully adjustable race struts and shocks, so that's great. I'm glad that it's not just a generic Shelby suspension system. That sounds good. Chassis stiffening, that's great. That was another thing that they didn't mention on the Super Snake that is probably necessary when you have that much horsepower and if you're trying to do launches like these performance half shafts. Racing wheels, spec tires, a 4-point cage, and Alcon racing brakes. That's exciting. Alcon makes brakes for F1. Alcon is legit, so that's cool. Instead of just giving it a rotor upgrade. So I sincerely hope that the GT350R, following Shelby's logic, this is going to be a $200,000 car, and then it's like, okay, well, these are good things, but are they Corvette ZR1 good? Because that's getting into 2025 Corvette ZR1 territory, and that's a 1,000 horsepower mid-engine, like European exotic killer. I don't know. I don't know if this. Again, I guess nameplate and badge, but they market this as like a hardcore race car. They're only going to build like 36 of them, and are they going to get raced? I don't know. But again, look at this. Still no mention of a transmission upgrade. So the GT350R will still have the MT82 as far as I'm aware. That's what I can't believe most of all. Guys, I don't know what Shelby American's on, but if you have some, send it my way because college is stressful. Thanks for taking the time to hang out and listen. Like, subscribe, and share if you enjoyed, and I sincerely hope to see you in the next one. Peace out.